Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fadwa Wazwaz. I explained I was going to put in a video shortly about the misinterpretation, I should say, and misapplication or misunderstanding of the marriage between Prophet Muhammad, upon him peace and blessings, as well as his first wife, Khadijah. I made a PowerPoint presentation. I'm just going to bring it up and just briefly go through it. I want to try as much as I can to make this a small or a short video. Okay. First, let me just give briefly his first wife, Khadijah. I don't want to give a historical account, but I would encourage you to research her life story. There are quite a few books out there. I'm about to finish one by Ramadan al-Bouti on the biography of Prophet Muhammad. If you check on Amazon, there is an English translation in a Kindle version that's out there, as well as a hardback or paperback. If you would want a hardcover in a paperback, if you are interested in reading more details about the biography of Prophet Muhammad. Just brief analysis of Khadijah. She was twice previously married. She was a very wealthy woman, very influential woman in the community. Also exceptionally intelligent, something about her. Very trustworthy and honest. She was known to have traits of being generous, caring toward people in her community, as well as particularly her kin. So as somebody who received many marriage proposals, she wasn't someone who was shopping around for a spouse or looking for a man to save her. It's very important to put that out there, because at times people forget that part. That's what makes this proposal very special. When Khadijah employed Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, she did not engage in like mind games, hints, scheming. You could say she knew what she wanted, and she knows herself. She was able to identify character traits in Prophet Muhammad that were pleasing to her. And if you will, she found an interest, so she sent someone to see in a responsible manner, instead of, again, hanging around, misconstruing hints, accusing Prophet Muhammad of misleading her because he's known to be also kind, gentle, good-natured, accusing him of misleading her or allowing herself to build feelings and emotions for someone and then saying he broke her heart. What she does is the responsible thing to do, which is to check and see if he would be open for marriage. You see, courageous, but that's really from a perspective of a woman. If I look at it, this is what somebody who's shy and modest would do. They wouldn't be misconstruing or misinterpreting another person's actions. They would clarify, they would verify, they would confirm, and they would open up the door for clarity and responsibly communicate with the other individual. In the case of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, he was never married. He was 15 years younger than her. Although he is financially poor, he's very, very spiritually, exceptionally rich. Something to point out that Khadijah was not this rich, powerful woman looking for a young, beautiful, poor man to marry, because there are women out there, there are men who, once they get rich and powerful, they look for, if you will, a young, very pretty woman. And there are women out there who, once they become powerful and rich, they go out there and they look for a very young, beautiful looking guy to attach to themselves. That's not the marriage between Prophet Muhammad and Khadijah, his wife. Again, she had many marriage proposals, and although he was financially poor, he was spiritually exceptionally rich. When he was orphaned at a young age, but he was still exceptionally, again, intelligent as well, known by his community as trustworthy and honest. When he received the marriage proposal, in a very gentle manner, he was first asked why he wasn't married. And he said he couldn't afford a marriage. Again, this isn't somebody who's hanging around a rich, powerful woman seeking employment so he could raise his status, so he could gain money, wealth. In fact, when someone said, what do you think about Khadijah? His response was, who am I? Who's Khadijah? So I know I mentioned briefly in a blog that I wrote on Prophet Joseph about how, they say sin begins at the level of the thought. That you could see from his response at his thought, level of his thought or his heart, that Khadijah was not there. He wasn't thinking about her, scheming, giving vague hints, like, do you notice me? Like he's trying to impress her with his work so that she could marry him. So when she told him, well, what if she overlooks the lady who was bringing the marriage proposal, what if she wants to marry and she overlooks your responsibility toward the marriage? Again, he knows himself. He doesn't play games or play hard to get what he wants, no wavering. So he finds in his heart interest in Khadijah, and he responds responsibly. And he says, if she accepts, look at the beauty of his response. And given the Me Too campaign, we could probably very, very much appreciate that, again, that spiritually, exceptionally rich response. He doesn't accuse her of anything or of leading him on or anything. He just says, if she accepts. So here he's looking for her consent and her permission in the marriage first. If she accepts, I will accept. Very beautiful, very responsible, very honest. You could see, again, this is what shyness and modesty is in manifested action. It's not just hanging around somebody and being cowardly, and I'll discuss this in other slides. First, as we're looking at the misinterpretation, because that's the purpose of this presentation, I'd like to start off with two beautiful people, Zayd and Zainab. In God's knowledge, both of these individuals are known to be trustworthy, honest. They've reached the highest station with God. Both individuals. Zainab is also one of the spouses of Prophet Muhammad after his first wife passed away. He married more than one wife, and she was one of them. Zayd was his adopted son, and he had proposed to Zainab to marry Zayd. Again, these were dignified people of integrity, people of sound faith. Now, the Prophet had good intentions. He knew that she was good, and he knows that Zayd was good, and you always want to bring two good people together. What we learn from the story is that marriage is not just about, eating lunch or hanging out together. You also have to have some sort of desire for the person you want to marry. And when she had accepted the marriage proposal because it was brought to her by Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him. But internally, she was not receptive to Zayd. Now, you could respect somebody, you could honor somebody, you could say this person is a trustworthy, honest person, sound faith. He doesn't necessarily have to have bad character or be an evil person, but you could just say that at a level of marriage, I just would not be interested in marrying this person. So it's important for us to grasp from this story that there has to be some level of attraction to that person you'd want to marry. You can't force your heart to lie. You have to be honest and say, I'm not really attracted to you. Just because you're a person of good character doesn't mean I have to be attracted to you, find you attractive. Another story that is out there about Prophet Muhammad, one of his other wives that he had, like I said, he married more than one wife, was Jawariya. Some traits about Jawariya: she's exceptionally beautiful. She was brought up in the lap of luxury. She was intelligent and wise, mastered the Arab language and literary style. This woman was brought up as a princess during a war. Again, trustworthy nouns. During a war or battle with her tribe, she ended up being a bondswoman for Thabit bin Qais. So she was not happy to become a bondswoman, and she decided that she's going to plead her case to the Prophet. Thabit bin Qais said that he would, if she can pay the ransom money, because she's now his bondswoman, that he would let her go. So she pleads her case to the Prophet. Again, a very courageous woman, no mind games, no hints. She just explains her case, that this is somebody who was a chieftain giving commands. She was raised as in the highest of honor. But here she is thinking about not just herself. My analysis is she wasn't thinking about herself. She was thinking about her family, and the Prophet saw that this is a woman, again, who was very intelligent, and he liked the fact that she was influential. This is my analysis of why he married Jawariya. Some people analyze it and say that the reason he married Jawariya was because she was exceptionally beautiful, and he was moved by her beauty, and that's why he married her. But the Prophet was actually offered many beautiful women during his mission, and he didn't marry every single woman that was offered to him. And in fact, when people tried to sway him away from his mission, he refused the offer of beautiful women to give up his mission. My own analysis is that he liked the fact that she was thinking above herself. In fact, that's a trait that all of his wives have. They're all intelligent, they're wise, they tend to be people who are always thinking above themselves, about others. And Aisha, she had opened up an orphanage and a scholar. Again, with Khadijah, she was somebody who took care of the people who were all her family, like her family members. She was very generous to people in her community. You saw that trait in all of his wives, that they tend to be smart, intelligent, people who thought above themselves. They were always thinking about others, and something that you would find a womanizer would be repulsed by, because womanizers don't like intelligent women. They prefer the ones that they can control. But here she again is courageously pleading her case to the Prophet. And again, if we go by the analysis, like some people say, that he was moved by her exceptional beauty, we can go by that analysis and look at it a little further. He doesn't again play mind games, hints, scheme, try to tell her, let go of Thabit bin Qais, I'll marry you. But instead, he offers her a choice. I will pay the ransom and then marry you. That's a choice that she had, because she's here courageously pleading her case. So he said, I will pay it and then marry you. And sure enough, she knows herself what she wants, and over. She finds in her heart interest in Prophet Muhammad. She responds responsibly and accepts and marries Prophet Muhammad. Now, she was known to have been, like I said, very influential with her family and other members of her tribe, and so she was able to be influential in bringing them to Islam. So this wasn't somebody who was looking in the mirror, obsessed with her beauty, but that's how some people speak about her, that she was so beautiful and he was moved by her beauty. I tend to think he was moved by her character, but everyone thinks differently. But again, modesty and shyness manifested here in that he offers her a marriage proposal. He doesn't play around games or expect her to read his mind or accuse her of misleading him or him misleading her. So you could see that here. This one is also a very interesting case. It's a simple Bedouin woman that was married to Prophet Muhammad. Like I said, most of his wives were intelligent and wise. This one was a very simple, innocent, kind of had a gullible personality type style. And so her co-wives manipulated her. This is before they consummated the marriage. They never consummated it, but they told her when he comes to consummate the marriage, that you seek refuge from God, from Prophet Muhammad. You say, I seek refuge from God, from you. Basically, you put God before Prophet Muhammad. And I really love the analysis of Imam al-Sha'rawi, because it says that if you want to know the character of someone, put God before him. And people sometimes misunderstood my, I have like a particular post that I keep putting every time, like there's an argument between me and others. So I'll put this post on my social media accounts, which praises God, subhanAllah, bihamdi, praising God over and over and over again. So every time you're like getting into an argument with somebody, you put that up there and you keep going, and people, I think, somehow misunderstood it something else. But from Imam Sha'arawi is, if you place God before somebody, whether it be a man or a woman, and these people, that individual is a very God-fearing person, then they will remove themselves. They will step back. And so he sent her back to her family. Again, you can appreciate that given the Me Too campaign and stories of women having a very, very, very difficult time saying no, 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 I'm not interested, no, no, no. Here's, again, the beauty of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, where the woman just places God before him, even though she did it out of gullibility and she was just innocent, and her co-wife told her that the respect that Prophet Muhammad showed to that seeking of protection from God, and the God-fearingness that he showed, again, is beautiful. Whereas some people, you would put it like a million times, and they'll be preaching God over and over and over again, and it seems like to not be understood at all. Again, none of his spouses were with him out of compulsion, and if you notice, all of his spouses, like I said, were very intelligent women. These are women that are usually avoided by womanizers because they could see through their games and their lies and their manipulation. I put with this video a link, if you will, that talks about a case of a man who was married to a woman and how he mistreated her in the marriage, and he regrets it. I'd like people to read that particular link. It's not about me. It's not about anyone, in fact, that I know. I just like that particular story because it highlights, again, a point that I want to make, which is that faith is about receiving. And sometimes, and I mentioned that even in the video, Love and Projection, God is very, very generous, and he gives us the gifts, but it's our own internal reality that makes us reject that gift, or makes us repel that gift. The Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, used to get up, and when in prayer, he would thank God for the gift of his spouses. So he looked at them as gifts from God. And this is how he received his spouses, as a gift from God. Whether it's Khadijah or Aisha or the other spouses, he would look at them as gifts from God. So you could see that appreciation that he had also for his spouses. But I want to just speak briefly about how his story has been misinterpreted, and how that marriage between him and Khadijah was misinterpreted and misapplied and used to pressure other individuals. If you read that particular link, like I said, usually women who are older, it's usually women. Sometimes, again, we see in another case, it's like a man going after a younger guy. But let me just focus on this link that I mentioned, the deen over dunya argument. A woman like I've met as a nurse or a doctor, sometimes they're recent converts, and usually they're pushed to forego their rights for a mahr, forego their rights in marriage, not even know what their rights are, and they're told to just deen over dunya argument, which is don't prefer the material world, prefer religion, marry somebody very religious. And so they keep pressuring, and they're putting somebody out there, and they're claiming that you have to choose deen over dunya. You have to choose deen over dunya, which is like religion over the material world. So they keep putting a man out there for her to marry, and she becomes manipulated or guilted into marrying somebody, and this individual doesn't even receive her as a gift or accept it or appreciate it, but he spends the entire time harassing her, abusing her, attacking her, accusing her of being desperate to marry him so that she even forgoes all her rights, or a mahr, or like a gift that he has to give, a marital gift that a man has to give his spouse. So there's that deen over dunya argument. Because Khadijah married Prophet Muhammad and he was poor, you should marry somebody who is poor. So people use that story as though, in one way, misinterpreting that Khadijah was somehow this rich, influential woman looking for a good-looking young man to marry. And that's absolutely not what the marriage was about. The mother or wife, how Khadijah nurtured Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad was a very respectable, spiritually rich, and I showed some of his responses that showed spiritually rich, very confident, someone who was doing very good work for Khadijah with the intention of that this is who he was as a character, as a man. He wasn't trying to impress her with his good work. So she didn't need to nurture him into that confidence, that self-respect, that dignity that he had. In fact, that's what she found attractive about him. It wasn't his poverty and young youth and good looks. It was his character that she found attractive. And so he wasn't looking for a mother, and she herself wasn't seeking him out to be his mother. She was looking for a partner, and he himself was interested in her as a wife. So a lot of time people use she nurtured me, and they turn Prophet Muhammad as this person who was this nobody who knows nothing. He had no great character in him that she found attractive. But when you do get married, you do of course support each other and benefit each other and become like a spiritual support system for each other. But we have to be very careful about how we talk about that story, because at times we reduce to Prophet Muhammad as somebody who, again, was this poor person who had no confidence. He was very doubtful, very insecure, and then somehow Khadijah nurtured him and became like a mother figure. Another misinterpretation, if you will, or misapplication of this case is, you're beautiful, it's your fault, I'm interested in you. Prophet Muhammad was known for his good looks. They said that, I mentioned in the story about Prophet Joseph and how he was so beautiful that the women in the kingdom all tried to conspire to bring him under the king's wife. They said that he only had half the beauty of Prophet Muhammad. Again, in this case, just because one person, either the man or the woman, find that others find them attractive, that's not their fault. That cannot be a reason that we can extract from the story. I don't think that she was interested in him for his good looks. And even if it is because of his good looks, there's nothing wrong. Like I said, I gave the story of Jawariya, who is exceptionally beautiful. Even if it is his good looks, you could respond responsibly. You can't sit around giving vague hints. Like I showed how she responded, if it was even for his good looks. She checked to see if he would be interested. She wasn't sitting around making romantic gestures. Hence, like when you buy ice cream, you buy a car, you buy a dress, you buy a shoe, you investigate it, you check the price, you try it on, you see if you like the ice cream, you might say, give me a taste of it first. This is the type of effort we give for just simple things in life. So when you're interested in another human being, likewise, you can't just be giving hints and romantic gestures in a situation where those gestures or hints may be misconstrued and misinterpreted. Some might think, might misread them, and others might find that those gestures and hints may be grounds for, again, sexual harassment, like I gave in the case on my Facebook post. Sometimes they will raise the argument, or they will understand the situation of Khadijah as, no one will marry you, so just accept him or her. That's for a poor man, telling him just marry this older woman because you're poor. Or in the other direction, it's for an older woman, just accept this poor man because no one will marry you. I mean, that's not how the story is understood. She had many marriage proposals. She was not looking for a spouse. And likewise, he was doing very good work. He was not himself. He said, I don't have, he could not afford a marriage. He himself was not looking for a spouse. So they just sort of met. It's like two souls who were very alike in character and spiritual excellence, that they met across each other's paths. So their paths just sort of brought them together. But neither one was seeking the other because they couldn't find someone to marry them. That's not why he accepted the proposal of Khadijah, and that's not why she proposed to him. So if you find yourself, or you're convincing others to marry this person because no one will marry you, that doesn't say much about the person, first of all, that you're promoting, whether they accept or they reject. Like if you're telling this person, marry this person because he's poor and no one will marry you, or marry this person because she's an older woman and you're poor and you're going to have a hard time finding someone else, that's not really a reasonable way to bring two people together for marriage. There has to be, as I showed with the Zayd and Zainab story, there has to be a desire to want to be married to the person. You're old, so marry the poor guy. Again, you're poor, so just marry the older woman. Those are just, again, some different interpretations of the same thing. I'm a religious woman, so marry me instead of a non-hijabi woman. And you see, again, it's the other direction is, I'm a religious man, so marry me instead of somebody who's like a non-religious practicing man. That deen over dunya argument. There has to be a level of attraction between both individuals. We saw this in the Zayd and Zainab story. You could be both very good individuals, but you're not attracted to each other. And like I showed in that post on Facebook, those two women, that woman that we met, she worked with that guy. So she had worked with him. He was a very nice man. She herself was a practicing Muslim woman. And he was attracted to someone who's a non-hijabi, and he was seeking her out for marriage. And when we told her that he's considering somebody for marriage, because at first she assumed that he was being nice to her and giving her hints that he was interested in her. Well, it turns out that he was just a nice guy. Like I said, Prophet Muhammad had a very nice, generous, but Khadijah was not sitting around trying to misinterpret his behavior and then saying, oh, he misled me, and years later, or he took advantage of me, or he broke my heart. She acted responsibly and just sent someone to see if he would be interested in her. So if you see somebody, either in your work or wherever, and you feel that you would be interested in this person, then you would want to check and see, maybe not you directly, but send somebody to say, is this person, either to clarify before you file sexual harassment, or if you are interested in the person, to see, are you interested in me? But this woman just hung around. Sometimes the woman that just hangs around and makes assumptions and misinterprets. And sometimes it's a man who hangs around and misinterprets and misconstrues whatever the woman is doing or saying. So you see it from both angles, where that person is just hanging around thinking that they're being shy and modest when they're really being cowardly, dishonest, and manipulative. That you were nice to me and polite to me, so you misled me. We didn't see that from Prophet Muhammad's angle. He's known to be a very nice, very kind person. We didn't see it from Khadijah. She also is known to be very nice and very kind. Both acted responsibly, and both were known to be shy as well as modest. But that's how shy and modest is in action. Even if you're attracted, like I said, to the person's looks, we saw this in Prophet Muhammad with Jawariyah, how he acted. Again, this is shyness, this is modesty in action. He just lets her know, would she be open to marrying him? He doesn't ask her to forego her rights, but rather he pays the ransom that and sets her out free from Thabit bin Qais, and he marries her, and she accepts. There was no pressure for her to accept. She accepted. So the idea that you're shy, you're giving somebody hints, and you're misconstruing and misconstruing and misconstruing and misinterpreting whatever they're putting out there in social media, or whatever they're saying or doing wherever your employment is, and you then accuse them of breaking your heart. That's something you have to sit down and think and reflect on the story of Khadijah and Prophet Muhammad, and just see how the responsible communication regarding marriage took place, and look at the responsible communication with his marriage with Jawariya, and the responsible communication with the simple Bedouin woman. There are other cases, but you could see again, shyness and modesty in action is you clarify, you verify, you confirm. Even if the simple Bedouin woman said, I seek refuge from God from you, he sent her back to her family. Sometimes you feel like you need a sledgehammer to tell somebody, I'm not interested in you. You're kind of pushed across, cornered in a wall where you're trying various ways to point out, I'm simply not interested in you. And it goes both ways, from the man or the woman, and you find that it's very difficult to get that across. My feelings are more important than yours, and neither one. If you looked at the marriage, this is a very beautiful marriage between Prophet Muhammad and Khadijah. In his response, he says, if she accepts, I accept. See, it's just a very beautiful response. He's not saying my feelings are more important than yours, but her feelings, if she accepts, I accept. And likewise from Khadijah, check to see if he accepts me, because she's interested in him. So she's checking his feelings for her, and she's interested more in his feelings, because when you love somebody, you're more interested in receiving, and not receiving in the sense of like material gifts and stuff, but you're interested in their love for you. And so you want to see, you're considering their feelings. You don't want to ever enter or engage another human being through guilt, manipulation, and because that leads to resentment, as we have showed with the Zayd and Zainab story. Sometimes the people are not both or either bad people. It's just why either one is pushed to marry somebody, it leads into resentment. So you have to check the feelings of the other person. And while you may like somebody, and you may find like that person is someone you would want to marry, a shy, a modest, an honest, and a trustworthy person cares less about their feelings and more about the feelings of the person that they're interested in. If she accepts, I will accept. And again, in Khadijah, if he's interested in marriage, she would like to marry him. So that's shyness and that's modesty. It's not my feelings are more important than yours, but a shy and modest person, how are they shy and modest? Is they're very, they walk very gently. They don't try to violate the other person emotionally, mentally, socially, spiritually. They don't try to violate that person. So their feelings, that person that they love or that they desire, their feelings are more important than one's own. So they always check to see, what are your feelings towards me? If you accept, I accept. So you have to check yourself, because a lot of times we dump this in the trash can when we try to look at the Prophet Muhammad and Khadijah marriage, and we push from either side, either a man to marry a woman that he has feelings for her, but she has no feelings for him, or for a woman to marry a man where she has feelings for him, but he has no feelings for her. And so you end up, and we use the Khadijah and Prophet Muhammad story, but we overlook the fact that both individuals, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, and Khadijah, checked the feelings. They checked to see if the other person was interested in them. So we need to take that into consideration when we're looking at that story. I don't want to go too long, but these are just some shades of the case of how it's being misinterpreted and how it's being misapplied. And I would, again, encourage you to look at that link that I'm going to add with this particular video. And if you would check and see that story where the man is talking about himself. Again, I don't know who that individual is, but I found it informative and I found it beneficial for us to understand how sometimes God showers, like I said, gifts upon us. And he's the most generous, because I really like to look for cases of where God's generosity comes to us, but we reject it or we repel it. And here's a man telling his own story of where he had a very wonderful wife, but how he did not receive her or see her as a gift, but in fact, because she was acting, if you will, or she was very good to him in the marriage, how he received that, and as somebody who was desperate for a spouse, somebody who was worthless, and how she was treated in the marriage. But you see a lot of cases like that, and from both directions, whether it's the man or the woman. But the important point is we can't just use the deen over dunya argument to push or bring people together for marriage. We also have to look at the story of Prophet Muhammad and Khadijah very thoroughly and in depth with breadth, and try to extract the wisdom, the beauty, and the excellence in character in both. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I do welcome criticism and any feedback. Anything that is in error, I would appreciate if you point it out so that I could correct this video and possibly redo it with better clarification. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and help.